AutoNation CEO Mike Jackson, who just got back from lobbying on the Hill, joins us this morning. He runs the nation's largest auto retailer, as you know. Mike, hard to believe that we're at this point, but knowing what you know and having talked to the people you've talked to, do you think a Chapter 11 filing is imminent in the days to come?
Well, if the vote last night was truly the last word, then it would genuinely be a catastrophic day for the American people and the American automobile industry. But I think those voting knew it's not the last word, and what has happened here is the issue has been punted back to President Bush.
You're right. Why would they take, in other words, why would they take a vote that could anger their constituents where they can just pass it off to the White House?
Exactly, and they know President Bush has the full authority to tap into the TARP funds to deal with this issue. Now President Bush has the dilemma of, on principle, trying to keep a bright line between the financial service sector and other industries, weighing, on the other hand, letting the American automobile industry have a cascading bankruptcy process. My view is Bush will exhibit genuine leadership here and act to save the American automobile industry.
If it were that easy, Mike, why didn't that happen in the first place? He wanted to see if Congress could do it, and then if not, he'd be the backup? He'd be Plan B?
I think the White House has exhibited excellent leadership throughout this. I think he has a correct principle to try to keep the TARP segmented purely for the financial service sector, and only in an extreme emergency do it a different way. So I think he went down the right road. And if you look at the bill that was voted on last night that was put together by the White House and by Democratic leadership, you know, it fell apart over the issue of does it have teeth? Well, let me tell you, you have a car czar, Paul Volcker, sitting across the table from you with the ability to pull the loans and throw you into bankruptcy.
Right.
Now, if that's not authority, I don't know what is.
Right.
Can you imagine sitting across the table with Volcker and he's got all the cards?
I agree with you, and a man who's been through a process almost exactly like this one back in 1979. Phil LeBeau is with us, by the way.
Successfully also.
Right. Phil LeBeau's with us in Lisle, Illinois. I want to bring him into the conversation as well. And Phil, you can ask Mike anything you like, but I wonder if you saw a filing, a Chapter 11 filing, are you confident, are the companies confident they could come out of it eventually?
Is this for Mike
Jackson? I don't
know,
Carl, and I think Mike, I think it was for me, but we can talk about it together. I think the issue of, some people look at this and they say, well, it'll be like any other bankruptcy. We saw United Airlines go into bankruptcy, and it came out of bankruptcy. This is far different. We're talking about the impact of a Chapter 11 filing would have a huge impact on the actual residual as well as the perceptual value of domestic automobiles. And if people look at their vehicles and say, well, you know what, they're going down another $1,000 or $1,500 in residual value, I'm not going to buy that car. Instead, I'm going to go over and buy a Honda or a Toyota. Then you see a real drop-off in revenue, and the fear in Detroit is that a Chapter 11 ultimately leads to a Chapter 7. And Mike, I know you and I have talked about this in the past. When you bring this up to people, sometimes you will hear people say, I don't really think that's possible. Give me your take in terms of what the odds of a Chapter 11 potentially turning into a Chapter 7 liquidation down the road for GM or Chrysler.
I would say it's 100%. It would happen rather quickly. And no automaker has ever gone into bankruptcy and come out. It always goes Chapter 7. You know, the idea that after September 15th, where we had this unprecedented collapse of industry volume by 25% from one day to the next. It's never happened in the history of the automobile industry. No event is comparable to the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers and what it did to, and the withdrawal of credit, what it did to our industry. That on top of that, you can have another collapse of revenue that would come about because people won't buy cars from a car company in bankruptcy. Phil is 100% correct. You're going to have cascading bankruptcy.
Nobody's buying cars from anybody right now, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, but Becky,
so now,
this would be different. When Oldsmobile went out of business, immediately, the value of an Oldsmobile vehicle dropped by $1,000. I was talking with a former Wall Street analyst, Ron Tadros, about this. That's with a company, a parent company, GM, that was not going out of business. That was just the brand going away.
Right.
Now, can you imagine if you had General Motors go into bankruptcy, how many people are going to go in and buy a Pontiac? If they know that Pontiac is going to be worth $1,500 to $2,000 less than what it already was worth.
Yeah, that's the point Mike's been making for a while. Mike, have you leaned on the executives of the big three in any way to do something that they have not yet offered? Have you called Wagner and said, look, you've got to step down? I mean, that would add a lot of credibility to this process.
Absolutely not. I think the automotive executives have truly been through the ringer and have, at the end of the day, made their case convincing that this is an emergency situation, that there are dire consequences, and that they are willing to make dramatic changes in their businesses on top of what they've already done over the past 3 years.
Mike,
that's a tin ear, Mike.
We know you, Mike, and we know that you don't agree with all of the strategic decisions that have been made for the past 10 years, but you don't think any change of leadership is necessary?
I mean, here's Carly Fiorina today, Mike, don't shoot the messenger. Corporate leadership in the crisis. CEOs seeking bailouts should be willing to resign. Why you were definitive there that no one needs to go. It's like a tin ear you have.
You know what, guys? I think that's dressing. Go ahead.
I'm saying that's not the key issue. If you want to take a sacrificial lamb,
it is to a lot of you're not hearing what's happening though. Then it is to a lot of
people didn't think corporate jets were a key issue either.
If you need a sacrificial lamb, that should not stand in the way
said. He
of
said
this,
that you don't fire the mayor of a city that has an earthquake. That doesn't ring true in the situation at General Motors. That it was some extraneous event like an earthquake is what put someone in this position.
Well, I think one thing you have to keep in mind, the housing and automobile industries went in cyclical decline in the summer of '05. How did those two industries handle it? Housing dropped all standards for credit and made a conspiracy with Wall Street and reported false profits for the financial service sector and the housing sector for 3 years, which is now totally blown up. And the collateral damage is in the automobile industry. The automobile industry for the last 3 years have reported the losses, taken their lumps, and done aggressive restructuring, have brought about world-class quality, world-class productivity, breakthrough labor agreements. I'm just saying you can't think about what Detroit was 10 years ago. You have to look at what they've done in the last 3 years to be fair.
Right. Bottom line, Mike, before we go, you do not think there will be a Chapter 11 filing this weekend, do you?
No, I don't think so. But I do think President Bush needs to act quickly, one way or the other, declare what he's going to do. My expectation is he's once again going to show extraordinary leadership and save the American automobile industry.
Mike, appreciate your time. Phil, I see you nodding your head as well. Good to see you again. Phil LeBeau joining us from Lyle.
It's not going to happen.
Right. I understand. I get the point.